Hey, what's going on? I'm Patrick Jagir, the Cosmic Alchemist, and welcome to today's video. So today I want to talk about Ghandanta. So Ghandanta is a term you may have heard in previous videos that I've made, and you still may not know what it means. And if you're new to my videos or new to Vedic astrology, you may not have heard this term before. So Ghandanta is all about when planets are in either the last degrees of a water sign or the first degrees of a fire sign. So you have 4 elements and you have 3 signs that correspond to each of those elements. So the way that planets transition, they go from water to fire signs. So Scorpio goes to Sagittarius, Pisces goes to Aries, and Cancer goes to Leo, so it goes from water to fire. The only exceptions to that progression are when planets are in retrograde, so when they're moving backwards as compared to their normal direction, or with planets that are always retrograde. The only 2 planets that are always retrograde are Rahu and Ketu, or the north and south nodes of the moon, aka Dragon's Head and Dragon's Tail. So Rahu and Ketu are always in opposite signs, and they're always moving in the opposite order. You know, through the chart, most planets go in, most planets go in a counterclockwise fashion through the charts because the signs progress counterclockwise when you look at it. Rahu and Ketu go clockwise. They're always retrograde. If they stop going retrograde, we'd be having serious problems. So that's what they always do. So in the case of retrograde planets, or with Rahu and Ketu, which again are always retrograde, they go from the fire sign to the water sign. So it doesn't matter which way the planets are going, whether they're going from water to fire or fire to water. What really matters is the transition, and it's about the transition between water and fire, or fire and water. So it pertains to the last degrees of the water sign, so we're talking the 28th and 29th degree, and then the first 2 degrees of the fire signs, 1st and 2nd degree. So in Ghandanta, traditionally it's considered to be drowning. That's sort of the quality or the energy of it. And so since these planets are aspects of our own psyches individually and collectively, the parts of us that a given planet pertains to, and is basically the equivalent to, is the analog for, these qualities that the planet pertains to of ourselves sort of feel like, basically like they're drowning, and there's kind of a feeling of desperation that comes up in all of us to varying degrees, but especially when you look at society as a collective, you see this desperation, you see impulsiveness, and there, especially in the case of Mars, there can really be kind of a violent quality, impulsive, violent quality that's just very non-logical, and it can really even be shocking to the people who are conducting said violent, impulsive behavior. So again, Ghandanta basically means drowning because of that fire to water or water to fire transition. So why this is important is here in September and then in October, we have 2 cases of Ghandanta that are very important. And actually, through, let me check my notes here, and even through December, almost through the end of the year, there's going to be a lot of Ghandanta going on. And really, Mars is taking it pretty hard this year. Mars has had kind of an unprecedented amount of Ghandanta. We usually don't see this. So, and basically, before I get into the particulars of both of Mars, and then I'm going to talk about Ketu as well, before I get into those particulars and those details, really the takeaway from this and the point to this is that, again, we're going to have both Mars and Ketu Ghandanta in the near future. And we're going to be seeing a lot of just crazy things in the world, especially here in the United States. We're going to be seeing some crazy behavior. It doesn't necessarily take an astrologer to tell you that we're in store for crazy behavior. That's very self-evident and that's very obvious. We have this shit show election coming up, and it's a clown show. It doesn't matter what side you're talking about. It's ridiculous. So we've got this crazy election coming up, and people have been kind of locked up really since mid-March. Our social activities have been canceled. A lot of people can't go to work. A lot of people don't have enough money. They're not making the money they're used to making because the places they work have been shut down. They've lost their businesses. Their businesses are limping along. So people are getting pretty angry. They're feeling desperate, and they feel like the walls are closing in, and they feel trapped. And there's an expression, in the Northeast where I come from. It's more a New York thing, but people in New England say it too, and they say when people lose everything, they really lose it. So that's something we're facing. A lot of people are facing right now. They're having that feeling. And the other thing is that for a lot of people, especially older people, their worldviews are just coming apart. And politics is a big magnet for this. And so many people get angry about politics, and through this year we've seen family members and friends just part ways because of politics. And it's not just people fighting about politics, but even in my own family, it's like there are people who are just always bitching about politics, and they blame everything that's not right in their life on the party that they don't like. And when people are just that negative and they're just so predisposed to blaming, it's not worth listening to when you're trying to get out of your own mental and emotional ruts. So I've seen it with my own eyes, and been living it. And so one of the big points for me making this video, I just want to tell people that especially in October, but really, just looking at it here, October, I'd say, October, November, you definitely have to live your life, but in these months, in October and November, don't put yourself at more risk than you really need to. So, when it comes to just verbal confrontations and altercations, you like Biden or you like Trump and you want to verbally face off with somebody who likes the other guy, well, verbal altercations turn into physical ones, and sometimes they don't go well for one party involved, sometimes both. So avoid that kind of stuff. If you don't have to travel to one of these cities where the peaceful protesters are beating up, maybe even killing people whose point of view they don't like, these cities where they're breaking the windows of businesses and looting them, and they're burning buildings down, and they're causing all kinds of mayhem, where Antifa operations are going on, then don't go to those cities, because October and November are definitely times when crazy violent things can happen, and we will see an uptick in violence and craziness, and just this impulsive, desperate behavior on the part of some people. Not everybody's going to act like this, but people who haven't balanced their Mars energy, people who are projecting their anger onto something outside themselves, people who, rather than changing their own lives, want to jump on board some political campaign and some political movement because they think that's going to make their life better. Those kind of people are going to do crazy things, and you don't want to be part of their drama, of their emotional or their physical drama, because fighting is just physical drama. So just be careful these next couple months, and even after the election, into December, some of this could go on. And when I look at the head of the charts for inauguration time, I don't recommend going to the inauguration in Washington, D.C. It might be limited anyway, because where life is canceled because there's this new flu going around, and social activities are canceled. But if the inauguration is held as normal, I don't recommend going to it. Even if you get invited to kind of a more limited one, like the Republican convention at the White House, I don't recommend going to that either, because you're gonna have some crazy ass protesters, people who are part of the party of peace, who are looking to hurt someone or burn something or destroy something. So watch the anger and violence in the world, and really watch your own level of anger and violence, because you can only be responsible for you. You can't change what other people are doing. And this time, it's a great time to really heal your own anger. Find out what's making you angry, because anger is a catalyst. You get angry when something in your life needs to change, and so your anger sort of catalyzes you. It gets you in motion to channel that aggression constructively. So just be careful during these next few months. The thing about politics is that I look at it as it's basically a safety valve for the rulers in this world. And I'm not talking about presidents and senators and congressmen and a whole bit. I'm talking about big business. I'm talking about not just the big companies and big banks in this world, but the conglomerates, where you have people who are on the boards of directors for multiple companies, and you get this interlocking between companies that are in different industries, and they're almost just one organization, effectively. So those are the people who rule the world, because they fund every politician's campaigns. Even people like Bernie, he needs money. He doesn't have his own money to campaign, so he needs it. So they own all politicians, Donald Trump, everybody. So these are the real rulers of the world, people who run big business, because they give the politicians the money they need, and the way things are now, they give the government the money they need to function. People think the government operates off of tax money. Not even close. Taxes pay the interest on national debts. They have to borrow more and more every year. So the real rulers of the world are big banking, big business, the whole bit, military-industrial complex, and others. So basically, getting back to my point, I look at politics as a safety valve for these people, because it's a distraction. So rather than having just we, the working people, understanding what's going on and how business owns every politician without exception, they just get us chasing our tails. They market these two parties to us as brands. These parties are just, they're like products, or they're like sports teams or celebrities, and it was pointed out to me just this week that you see people, you see Trump and Biden supporters wearing the hats and, you know, wearing the red and white, red and blue T-shirts with, you know, the candidate's name on it and their logos, respectively. So, you know, and really these elections have been reduced to like a Super Bowl. So it just boggles my mind how people try to get all intellectual about politics and, you know, start talking about the intellectual, the high intellectual basis for it, because it's just, it's like Roman imperial breads and circus. It's like a Super Bowl. So my point is that these political games, these political spectacles, are a safety valve for the people who rule the world, for big business, because it gets the eyes of the people off them and it puts it onto these two political parties that they sponsor. They sponsor them like, you know, race car drivers or sports teams. And the way this works is that these parties are marketed to people to basically get them to project the angers and the frustrations of their lives onto politics, especially onto the politicians and the parties they don't like. So, and really the fact of the matter here is that we're raised, it's not just the Western world, it's everywhere, and it's worse in places like China and India. We're raised to not be our real selves. We're raised to basically build our lives on the expectations of other people. So we're taught to build our lives, to make our life's choices, our education choices, our career choices, and even, you know, the choices of who we marry, who we're friends with, who we associate with, what we think, what we learn. We build our lives on the expectations of other people. So it starts with our parents and our families and our friends, and then we keep building our lives on other people's expectations. So the expectations of our spouses, of our peer groups, of our bosses, of our colleagues, people at church, people in our professional associations, and the list goes on and on and on. So we're always, basically from cradle to grave, unless we notice this pattern and we break out of it, we're always building our lives on the expectations of people around us because we want to be accepted. And this was the way things have been for a very long time. And really, this didn't frustrate people for many years because we had more of a group consciousness. With the advent of the age of Aquarius, we now have the responsibility to develop as individuals, individual consciousness. So we have to balance this. We have to balance our individualism with collectivism. And we can't just run towards collectives and just, you know, neglect our individual identities and our individual lives, because we end up miserable and we end up suffering from it. You know, I'm all about getting great information and great insights and practices from the past, but you always have to balance the past with the times you're in. You can't go back in time to more comfortable times. I'm always saying this in my videos. So the way this pertains to politics is, again, we, you know, at this sort of beginning of the age of Aquarius, we have to learn how to be individuals and how to fulfill ourselves on an individual level while also balancing our responsibilities to the people in our lives and the groups of people that we're a part of. So we're at this really unique point of frustration in history, and I think this really set in the 1960s, you know, when really as a world we felt Aquarius approaching. And I think that's what, you know, free love and like all the drugs and all the partying, you know, and that even carried on into the 70s and 80s, you know, when that was really at a high point. I think that's what that's what that was really all about. It was about people breaking away from just doing what their parents told them to do and just keeping the blinders on and doing nothing else. People started experimenting with things and trying new things and trying to figure out who they were. With that said, I think, people who were young, college age or older during the 60s, they take away too much credit for what was accomplished back then. The world wasn't saved, we just started experimenting with something different. So anyway, enough of that sidetrack. So basically, the whole point I'm trying to make about politics is that people feel frustrated because they've been making all the decisions in their lives based on other people's expectations. So it's tough to get angry with yourself and see what you need to change in your life and then make those changes. It's a lot easier to just hate Donald Trump or hate Joe Biden, hate Barack Obama, whoever. It's a lot easier to sit on your couch and watch the news or read the news on your whatever the hell device and get pissed off about it. It's much easier to do that than to make changes in your life, because you may have to leave a job, you may have to downsize the overhead in your life, you may have to end relationships and begin new relationships. And when people start really being themselves, it can cause some really drastic changes in their lives. And that's tough to do, but it's a lot easier to just get pissed off at the news. So politics is there, in my opinion, to one, make sure people don't change their lives too much, because you want them paying their mortgages, racking up their credit card debt, getting bigger mortgages, getting more student loan debt. You want the debt farm to keep going. And a lot of people don't like to hear this and they think it's pessimistic, but we do debt farming. It's like the majority of people in the world used to make their living growing crops. Well, we don't do that anymore, but we're debt farmers. So people who rule the world don't want anyone to stop doing that. So if people got authentic all of a sudden with themselves and they started changing their lives, it would threaten that. And it would also, people could see their own lives clearly and start changing their own lives, then they would actually want to see meaningful change in the world, rather than just getting your presidential candidate elected and then going back to sleep thinking that he's going to take, or she's going to take care of all of it. It's like when Obama got in office, it was like a George Bush 2.0. Nothing really changed. So, but people projected their own aspirations onto him. They didn't have the courage to change their own lives, so they were like, change it for us, please. And they just assumed that, he was on the same page with them. People do this with Donald Trump. People do this with Republicans, Democrats. It's all the same. So that's what politics is all about. It's an anger and frustration and indignation safety valve. It just keeps us peasants just chasing a television show with actors who we call politicians, rather than making meaningful change in our own lives and in the world, because anger is the catalyst for change. Anger is, you have that emotion to tell you that something needs to change and you need to sort of go on the offensive. You need to channel a little aggression towards a situation that needs to change. Aggression's not a bad thing. It's all about how you use it and the dose you use. So the first Ghandanta for Mars this year, first of the four, happened in August. So on August 12th, Mars reached 28 degrees of Pisces. So the 28th degree is the second to last degree. Pisces is a water sign. So Pisces, water. The next sign is Aries, fire sign. So you get that Ghandanta, you get that drowning feeling, again, from water sign to fire sign to water sign. It's all about the transition. And that, again, the last two, the 28th, 29th degrees of the water sign, and degrees 1 and 2, the first two of the fire sign. So August 12th, Mars went to 28 degrees Pisces, went Ghandanta, got that desperate kind of drowning feeling. And we saw this, we've had all this rioting, all this looting, this peaceful protesting all over the country. And so it stayed Ghandanta a couple weeks. So, by the 17th, Mars moved into Aries. And then it slowed down. It actually took until about August 29th to get through that second degree of Aries. So then, September 9th, Mars stationed at 4 degrees Aries. So planets station when they look like they're standing still from our point of view here on Earth. Planets always station before they go retrograde, so they don't, move forward and then they don't snap backwards. They move in a normal direction. They stop for, depends on the planet, sometimes a day, sometimes longer, and depends how far away it is really. And then they move in the opposite direction, or they seem to move in the opposite direction from our point of view. So anytime there's a retrograde, there has to be a station. So September 9th, Mars stationed at 4 degrees Aries. So whenever a planet stations for a retrograde, it really intensifies its energy. So Mars, for example, it basically sort of put out more potential energy for anger, frustration, violence, all that kind of thing. Then on the 10th of September, Mars went into retrograde. So, and the thing about retrogrades is it's a chance for us to sort of review whatever that planet pertains to. So we don't really, during a retrograde, not the greatest time to take on something new. It's all about kind of going back and going over and really, kind of healing and correcting things that need it. That's the opportunity of a retrograde. Usually in New Age circles, people dread Mercury retrograde, but it's a time to go back and look at your thinking, your communications, even, things that deal with like trade, marketing, commerce. So retrogrades are all about it's a chance to review and correct things. So, and Mars goes into retrograde for, let me see here, just about 2 months, 2 months and change. Mars goes into retrograde. So the next Ghandanta from Mars starts on October 4th. So that's when, since Mars is moving backwards, it reaches 29th degree of Pisces. So the last degree of Pisces. So Pisces is the water sign. Mars is just coming from Aries, the fire sign. So Mars is going to stay at those final degrees of Pisces, 29 and 28 degrees, for about a week. So October 11th, Mars is going to leave the 28th degree of Pisces for the 27th degree. So that's a week worth of Ghandanta. So then November 14th, Mars is going to go direct. So, and that's actually right after the elections, so about 11 days after the elections. I'm going to do another video on the elections and my read on how all that's going to go. A lot of people are going to be angry, and when these elections happen, the supporters of one candidate are going to be angry, and then later on, say by December, the supporters of the other candidate are going to be angry, because this election is going to be a lot like the 2000 election. Because not only do we have the Jupiter and Saturn conjunction like the year 2000, but we also have Mercury is ending a retrograde on the day of the election, just like in 2000. So whenever you get an election on the day that Mercury goes direct after being in retrograde, you get a massive communications mix-up, because Mercury is communication. So it's going to be just like 2000. We're not going to know who the president is. There's going to be a legal battle, and the person who thought he was going to be the president is now going to be the president. So, and in the middle of all that, we've got Mars ending a retrograde and going direct on November 14th. So, again, Mars, I'm talking about Mars because Mars is anger, violence, volatility, frustration. So, this is a big season of all of that. And then that last Ghandanta that Mars is going to go through, it's going to start. This is when Mars is moving forward again. It's going to be on December 18th. It's going to go to 28 degrees of Pisces, and then Mars is going to go back to Aries on the 25th of December. So on Christmas Day. So it'll be an angry and frustrated holiday season, unfortunately, but such are the times we live in. So why this Ghandanta is so important is because it's, for one, it's showing us really how much anger we have, and it's showing us how violent we can really be. The interesting thing here is that, most of the violence we're seeing from now, it's from anti-Trump people. I don't think Donald Trump's a great guy, but usually the left wing professes itself to be a party of peace. Well, people on the left have been looting and burning cities because they don't like Donald Trump. So it's a massive hypocrisy that, back in 2008, the big thing was Barack Obama got elected on anti-war because people said, well, we want peace. Well, now a lot of those people are ready to go out and, throw bricks through the windows of businesses and steal things from businesses and, beat people up for wearing the wrong t-shirts and the wrong hats, or beat people up for supporting Donald Trump. So it's like I'm always saying, there's no liberal party right now. It's like two groups of conservatives battling it out. And being conservative is, by definition, it's all about conformity, and it's all about playing by other people's rules and just submitting to the groups that you're part of. So it's a crazy time. So this is showing us that the right wing doesn't have a monopoly on aggression and violence. It's both sides, both left and right, are totally self-righteous, and they can be very aggressive and violent when they don't get their way. So, and that's the thing about politics too. There's not a lot of rational thinking. It's all about emotion. And people think that emotion is just law, and they think that actually that their favorite politicians can break the law when they're emotional about something. So that's a whole other subject. But Mars is going through these positions, and it's letting loose all this aggression and anger and violence just to show us who we really are and what's really in there. And it's an opportunity to basically to heal ourselves with that anger. Not everybody's going to take that opportunity, but it's an opportunity that's there. And another thing that's going to happen is this is going to show the world people's true colors. It's very obvious that Republicans, some Republicans, and some people in the right wing can be very close-minded, and they can be a little liberal in their use of violence and aggression and warfare and all that, but most people won't acknowledge that the left can be just as violent when they want to get their way and they want something. So everything that's happening, all this violence, all this rioting, it's showing us what both sides are really made of. And in this particular case, it's like these Antifa people and these radical left people are really embarrassing themselves, because forever they've been calling the right wing a bunch of warmongers, a bunch of aggressive, violent people. Well, they're all doing it. And as they make excuses for anti-Trump protesters that are looting and burning buildings and destroying things, they're just showing themselves to be hypocrites. So it's a very interesting time. It's a time where people are going to show you what they're made of. So, and then I want to move on to this Ketu Ghandanta. So, if you're not familiar with Vedic astrology, what's Ketu? Ketu is the south node of the moon, also called the dragon's tail. So Rahu and Ketu are shadow planets. They're the eclipses of the sun and the moon. They're not physical planets. They're sort of mathematical points in space, and whenever the sun and moon line up with them, whenever they conjunct with them, you get eclipses, solar and lunar eclipses. So Rahu and Ketu represent basically our karma. So Rahu is the karma of the present life. And depending on where Rahu is in your chart, or in a country's chart, or in a company's chart, Rahu tells us what we're here to do in this current incarnation, individually or collectively. And so what we're here to do is what we tend to be most interested in, but it's what we have least experience with. It's what we're supposed to explore. It's like the wilderness we have to go explore. Ketu is our past life karma, and there's actually I got the whole wilderness and castle thing from Ernst Wilhelm. So Ketu is the comfy castle, as he calls it. And so Ketu is the past life karma. It's what we've mastered in past lives, what we have a lot of experience with, and it's a comfort zone that we can fall back on when we need to. But what often happens in life is that when we stay too close to our comfort zone, we get booted out into the wilderness, and we have to go deal with and explore what Rahu pertains to in our chart. So, and the world has these Rahu and Ketu points, and Rahu and Ketu change sign every year and a half. They take a year and a half to go through a sign. So basically, it's an axis running through the chart, and it tells us, what the karma of the world is for the next year and a half. So this sign change is going to be a very good thing. Rahu and Ketu were just in Gemini and Sagittarius, respectively. Gemini and Sagittarius is where the plane of the galaxy runs through. It's where the Milky Way runs through the sky. It's galactic center. So when planets, and especially Rahu and Ketu, line up with galactic center, you get just really crazy and shocking and really fated events. Like things just seem to just come out of nowhere. And we had a solar eclipse on galactic center back in December. So, right when this whole COVID thing was just about to roll out. So, in that, COVID-19, that whatever you believe about where that came from, it's not as simple as news media tells us, but wherever you believe that came from, it ultimately came from galactic center, and that is the highest vibrational part of the sky, is galactic center, where the Milky Way is running through, and it came to teach us a lesson. So, and in Vedic astrology, we use nakshatras. They're mini constellations that make up the 12 signs. There are 27 of them that make up the 12 signs of the zodiac. So in Gemini, you have a mini constellation, a nakshatra called Ardra. And then in Sagittarius, you have one called Mula. Ardra is all about tragic events. It can deal with pandemics, with viruses, bacteria. And then Mula, which is in Sagittarius, deals with destruction, and it also deals with viruses, bacteria, pandemics. So in every 18 years, the Rahu and Ketu come back to where they were. To make a full cycle around the zodiac takes 18.5 years. So before COVID-19, it was 9/11. Before that, it was AIDS. Before that, it was sort of the Kennedy assassination and the U.S. faking its way into the Vietnam War, kind of lying its way in. Before that, you had the Hiroshima bombings and the atom bombs. So something really crazy happens every 18.5 years. So we were due for that because in 2020, Rahu and Ketu lined up with galactic center and in these constellations, Ardra and Mula, just like on 9/11 and all those previous occasions I mentioned. So Rahu and Ketu changing signs and going from Gemini and Sagittarius respectively, going to Taurus and Scorpio. It's a very good thing because the world is going to feel safer, it's going to feel more stable, and life's going to get more back to normal. We're not going to have to go everywhere with a mask on. I call it my burqa these days. You know, you're not going to have to go everywhere in your burqa. You're not going to have your temperature checked. You're not going to have the crazy restaurant rules where you can sit down with the mask off, but then if you stand, the mask has to go on. We're going to get back to traveling. We're going to get back to all that stuff. The economy is going to start getting on its feet. So this is very positive, and it's, let me get the date here. Incidentally, the sign change is the 19th of September. So very good thing. But September 19th, Ketu is going Ghandanta. So Ketu is going to go from a fire sign, Sagittarius, to a water sign, Scorpio. It's going to make that fire to water, water to fire sign transition. So causes some craziness, causes some of that drowning, again, drowning, desperation kind of feeling. So Ketu does its sign change on September 19th, but to back up a little bit, when you look at, really when you want to look at the Ghandanta, that'll start in Sagittarius. It'll be the first and second degrees of Sagittarius because it's a fire sign. So Ketu went into second degree of Sagittarius around, it was early August, I think around August 1st. So Ketu was in, again, all through August, all through September, is in those first 2 degrees of Sagittarius, that fire sign. Then September 19th, Ketu goes to 29 degrees of Scorpio. So it's a long Ghandanta for either Rahu or Ketu. It's going to be Ketu in this case because Ketu and Rahu just move so slowly. So that Ghandanta on the part of Ketu, that's going to last until October 13th, until Ketu goes down to the 27th degree of Scorpio. So that's the long one. So Ketu it's our past life karma. Ketu is this shadow planet Ketu. It's all about spirituality. It really wants liberation from this material world. It doesn't want to deal with people. It doesn't want to deal with daily living, with finances, with materialism. It doesn't want to deal with the world and all the politics and the interpersonal stuff that goes on in the world. It wants to get away. It wants moksha. It wants liberation. It wants to be in a spiritual place. It wants to get out of this world and into the spirit world. So, with that said, Ketu on its bad days can really be kind of like a religious fundamentalist. Ketu is like a monk. It's like just a spiritual kind of mystic or, an ascetic practitioner. So, but Ketu on its bad days is like a terrorist. It's like a religious fundamentalist. So, Ketu going in these Ghandanta degrees, again, that ramps up the extremism. It ramps up the desperation. Ketu can really have a lot to do with violence too. So, and I just want to look at the chart here. Wanted to see if Mars has any aspects with all this stuff going on. So yeah, no aspects from Mars, but just Ketu on its own, being Ghandanta. Again, you see people just getting more extreme in their views and just more inflexible and just less tolerant of people who disagree. And that's a thing we see in these times. You know, and particularly from the left. You know, it's like the left these days is like the right was back in the 1950s. You know, back in the 1950s, if you disagreed with the right wing, you were automatically like a communist, basically a communist traitor. If you disagreed with their point of view, there was no ability to disagree with the right wing back in the 50s during, you know, the McCarthy kind of communist witch trial days. Well, now the left is doing that. So if you disagree with people who are very, you know, extreme radical left, you're automatically a Nazi, you're a Trumper, you're a white supremacist, you're a racist. So it's the same thing that the right was doing back in the 1950s. So Ketu is really kind of ramping this all up. So to have Mars and Ketu, especially to have Mars in this whole Ghandanta season from August all the way through basically Christmas Day this year, to have that going on, and then to have Ketu kind of, you know, Ketu having its own Ghandanta, it really just, it makes things that much crazier. And, you know, I definitely see potential for, you know, just some more violence to happen, just because people are so extremist and they feel so desperate. So, you know, a lot of people have said this already, but, you know, in October, fly under the radar a little bit. You know, don't go out of your way to have verbal confrontations with people, because those could go physical really fast in times like this. You know, if you don't have to go to any of these cities where, you know, these peaceful protesters are beating people up and even killing people and destroying businesses and burning buildings down, don't go to those cities. So I guess I'm just saying, just be careful and, you know, live your life, but lay low if you can. Don't live in fear, but don't put yourself at unnecessary risk. So that's really the message with that. So I'm going to wrap that up. As always, this is kind of a long one. But I've got some more videos coming. I've got some ideas for some good videos. And I'll talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. And if you have any questions, comments, whatever, leave them in the comments section of the video. And if you want to see how these times, these current events, these movements of the planets affect you, I highly recommend getting a Vedic astrology reading with me. I can show you how these times affect you and really give you strategies for how best to navigate these times, because in tough times there's always opportunities. I also do rune readings, and those are a great mind map just to see where the kind of the obstacles are in your mind to helping you realize and manifest the goals that you want to. I also have some videos on sale for download, some Qigong videos. Qigong is a great mind-body practice to improve your health, physical health, mental health, and help you to kind of find the real you and become that real you. So anyway, have a good one, and talk to you later.